This Real Agriculture podcast is brought to you by Genesis Fertilizers. Nitrogen fertilizer is your farm's #1 expense. Farmers are working together through Genesis Fertilizers to solve the problem of high prices and security of supply by planning a state-of-the-art nitrogen plant. Security and earnings through ownership is the solution. Visit Genesis today at genesisfertilizers.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, and welcome to Real Agriculture. Today I'm at the Ontario Agricultural Conference down at Ridgetown Campus, University of Guelph, joined now by Dr. Peter Sikkema. Peter, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you very much.
Hey, now you've just done an awesome presentation on, what causes, herbicide injury. And, Peter, you had 7 on your list. What are the most common causes?
Yeah, so for the purposes of my presentation today, I divided them into 7 broad categories in terms of why herbicides cause crop injury. First of all, it could be due to extremes in weather conditions. Secondly, it could be unique or variable soil characteristics. There could be application errors, seeding problems. It could be interaction with other pesticides, herbicide residues in the soil, or finally just sensitive crop hybrids or cultivars.
Let's dig into some of these. And I want to start with, that extreme weather, too hot, too wet. I think you get a little bit of everything that can cause injury.
You are correct. And so I think it's one of the more common reasons why you get crop injury from soil-applied herbicides is if you have cold, wet weather after application. It delays the time from seeding to emergence of the crop. And you need to think all of that time while that crop is below the ground, it's taking in herbicide, but it's not growing actively, and it can't metabolize the herbicide, and that results in accentuated crop injury. In terms of other weather effects that could cause crop injury with post-emergence herbicides, if you have really hot, humid conditions, the cuticle on the leaf surface becomes more fluid or more permeable. You get greater than normal uptake of the herbicide, and it results in crop injury. Another weather pattern that may result in increased crop injury is where you have large diurnal fluctuations in temperature. So let's say it's below 5 degrees Celsius at night and it goes up to 30 degrees during the day. That's a really broad temperature swing for plants. They're not growing as actively. They can't metabolize the herbicide as quickly, and it results in greater crop injury. In terms of a soil-applied herbicide like the Group 15s in dry beans, if herbicides like Dual or Frontier, if you get an activating rain event, just as the dry beans are knuckling through the soil surface, they take up more than the normal amount of the herbicide, and it results in crop injury.
Now, the second point on your list was, unique soil conditions, and you also, you certainly like to talk about organic matter having more or less in this situation.
Right, and so what you need to appreciate is that on a light, sandy textured soil that's low in organic matter, there are fewer binding sites for the herbicide. So that means that the herbicide remains in soil water solution. A greater concentration of the herbicide is in soil water solution, and the crop can take it up. And that's why you typically get greater crop injury on light textured soils that are low in organic matter.
What about pH?
So pH can affect herbicides differently, and so typically there's greater crop injury on high pH soils, and it gets to be quite technical, but herbicides either accept or release a proton depending on soil pH. If they accept a proton, that means they're now positively charged. You have negatively charged soil. The herbicide is bound to the soil. It's biologically unavailable for weed control, and that's why you would get less injury on a low pH soil with a number of different herbicides.
Let's talk about another one on your list here, application errors. So many things that we can do wrong, shall we say, to impact injury.
Yeah, and so there's many application errors that could occur. And so the first one I'll talk about is you need to adjust the rate of the herbicide depending on how robust the crop is. So, for example, if you take pursuit, soybeans are really tolerant to pursuit, and you can apply pursuit at 160 milliliters per acre. In contrast to that, Azuki beans are not quite as robust, and the highest rate that I'm comfortable with is 125 milliliters per acre. And then the Phaseolus vulgaris market classes of dry beans, kidney beans, and cranberry beans, the maximum rate I would go with is 100 milliliters per acre. And white and black beans are the most sensitive, and the highest rate that I'm comfortable with in terms of recommending it would be 75 mils. So you need to appreciate that different crops have different ability to metabolize and the herbicide and tolerate the herbicide, and you need to adjust your herbicide based on what crop you're growing in the field, even if you're using the same herbicide.
What about application timing, Peter? Can we get it right? Can we get it wrong?
You can definitely get it right, and you can definitely get it wrong. And so I'll just give you a couple of examples. You can apply 2,4-D post-emergence in the spring and winter wheat, and in most cases you will have no crop injury at all. In contrast to that, you should never apply 2,4-D after winter wheat has emerged in the fall. You almost get no symptomology for 7 or 8 months, and then when the head emerges from the boot, you'll notice that it has really severe growth distortion, and it does result in a noticeable yield decrease. So that would be one application problem. In terms of other application problems, it could be simply that you added too much adjuvant for the weather conditions at the time. Under hot, humid conditions, the cuticle becomes more fluid. It's easier for the herbicide to cross the cuticle and get into the living portion of the plant, and therefore you can reduce your adjuvant rate under those hot, humid conditions. You will get acceptable weed control, and you will reduce the amount of crop injury.
Peter, when we talk about injury, you also want to talk about, I guess, the crop's ability to bounce back from injury. I mean, we can hurt them, but they can bounce back.
Yes, and that's a very good point, Bern. And so it amazes me how severe crop injury can look, 7, 10, 14 days after herbicide application or after crop emergence. And if you have really good weather growing conditions for the remainder of the growing season, in many situations the crop will recover with no impact on yield.
Right. Well, Peter, hey, always great to have you on Real Agriculture. We only scratched the surface of your presentation here. I encourage everybody to go to the Ontario Agricultural Conference, check out the full conference presentation from Dr. Sikkema. Peter, always great to have you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you very much, Bern.